Hello and welcome back to Diminishing Returns, where we're back talking about James Bond now. At this point, we would have expected to have been talking about No Time to Die, but that has not happened. So we're trekking on with our look through the Bond series. I'm Calvin, and with me are, as always, Sol,
James Bond,
and Alan.
Hello. Hello, Calvin. Can I just say, well done. You're being very brave about the whole No Time to Die situation.
What? How am I being brave?
You haven't broken down. You've carried on with life.
Yeah.
You haven't left your house in 6 weeks, though. I'm not worried about that. That is some sort of protest.
Well, to be honest, Calvin's kind of come out of this situation pretty well off, I'd say, as a Bond fan. No Time to Die is going to be one of the first blockbusters that we can sort of get back into going to see, realistically.
Who don't tell Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, well, yeah. Most of the big films we were looking forward to have been delayed until 2021.
Is Bond still coming out in November, or have they chucked that in?
No, it's still scheduled for November. I guess if they were going to move it again, obviously the longer they put off moving it, the more it costs them. But I figured sort of like by September, if things are back to some kind of situation where people can actually pay to go into cinemas, then it'll still be out. There were some documents released recently that said it's the most expensive Bond film ever made. It's got this huge budget, and that's not including, apparently they spent like $30 million in pre-production when it was going to be Danny Boyle's film.
Oh,
and then
God,
it completely... They were building sets. The production designer did an interview and he was like, yep, no, we were building sets in Canada. We had a sort of the script more or less sorted, and then they decided that they weren't going to go with Danny Boyle and his writer, so they completely changed everything, which obviously cost them a lot of money. So people have been calling for like, oh, just release it on video on demand or whatever, and it's like, no, that's definitely not going to happen. For a movie like this, or Fast and the Furious, or, Top Gun, any kind of those big action spectacles that people have been looking forward to, they won't be going to streaming unless it's like very, very dire circumstances.
Yeah, the only reason they're doing that with anything at the minute is, I mean, there were a few films up front that did it, but they were mostly films that had already been out in the cinema, and they were just cutting...
Yeah, like Invisible Man.
Yeah, they were just cutting...
Sonic the Hedgehog.
So they'd had their, like, box office gross and their opening weekends and everything, and then they just were cutting the extra bit of time in the cinema short to, well, we might as well capitalise on people needing stuff to watch at home and being willing to pay a premium to see it early and everything. And then they obviously thought, well, we're like not cash flow positive at the minute because nothing's coming in. Let's cut our losses and just dump a few kids' movies out that, some families will just dump money into keeping their family entertained. So they've got Trolls World Tour and Scoob. And they're already having trouble with that, because Trolls World Tour, there's a whole ongoing situation now where the key cast members all had things written into their contract that said, well, if the film makes over this much at the box office, we'll get bonuses. And obviously there's been no box office, but then Universal's making a huge song and dance about, oh, it's the most profitable straight-to-video opening for a film of all time, and we made all this money doing it. So they're like, right, well, that counts as the box office, give us some money. But then they're like, well, no, we were just putting a brave face on things, and actually, like,
it's still
the film
nowhere
isn't
near
even...
what the box office.
Yeah, it's nowhere near turning a profit. Bear in mind that we would have had all the cinema money, and then this film would have opened on digital anyway. So it's a really messy situation, and yeah, there's just, people are lamenting the death of the cinema system and so on, and I'm sure this is going to speed along the process by which we end up with only big blockbuster movies being given the time of day in the cinema. But, you know, that doesn't mean we're going to start not getting big blockbuster movies in the cinema. It's a huge revenue stream for them.
Calvin, you work for an unnamed children's television business.
Yes.
Is it completely shut down?
No.
Is it? Are they still managing to produce things? Or
animation is
just people sat at home drawing stuff.
Well, pretty much. I
yeah,
mean, yeah. Once people can kind of adapt to it and move the equipment, and obviously it's maybe a bit more hassle. You need to get the director on a video call or whatever to have him look at the animator's work and all this kind of stuff. But so long as people have this equipment at their homes, theoretically, yes, it can just keep on going. The problem is getting the actors. But even then, you can, dispatch sound recordists with equipment. And yeah, so animation is in one of the better states, really, out of everything.
With something like that, I know this is a total tangent, but with something like that, where you're working quite well ahead of the time, could you get your actors to do their voiceover, send them the equipment, they do it in the back room or whatever. And then, 6 months down the line, you could always re-record some stuff and do it like a ADR. Or is that, once you've drawn it, it looks shit if you try and re-record it?
The lip sync would probably be off. I mean, how a lot of the stuff that we've been doing is just the actors just basically record even on their phones, just like whatever equipment they can get, and then that's just like scratch, and then the animatics are done to that, and then it goes to animation, and the hope is that they can put off the lip sync aspect of it for long enough that they'll actually be
just
able to do
what
the
they can while they can.
Yeah, but there's at least some indication of the performance that the actor would give. So
yeah, you can do the eye.
So that's it. You're going to have all these. We might get to a point where there's some animated series debuting in 2021 where the characters suspiciously just don't have mouths, or they all have big moustaches.
That's fireman sound.
Calvin, in all seriousness, I wanted to ask you about this. Well, first of all, has a James Bond movie ever been nominated for Best Picture? Ever?
Oh, no.
Right. Well, do you think this is the one? Because if this is
there's only like
that's what I know.
know.
Genuinely, like the Oscars have said they're changing their rules so that films released digitally do count now for this year as a one-off. But even so, everything's been delayed. Like, even accounting for all that, nothing's coming out. So if this James Bond film, if No Time to Die is as good as Casino Royale and Skyfall, if it's as well received as those, I mean, it's got a really solid chance at a Best Picture nomination.
You're actually not... Yeah, that hadn't occurred to me, but... Yeah, if it does end up being as well received as those other two, then there's because I remember even when Casino Royale and Skyfall came out, there was sort of rumblings of, maybe they could, tip the scales. But yeah, if there's just nothing else there, then yeah, it could actually end up getting a nomination. That's quite interesting.
I mean, based on what's come out this year so far, it could win, frankly, but I'm sure there'll be some prestige dramas dropped out digitally at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, all your real kind of Oscar baiting things, they'll do basically a pretend release in December somewhere.
Yeah, they'll screen
not
for
really the release, and then do it in March when they've won the Oscar.
It's a 2-week run in the Hollywood, the Chinese theatre or wherever in LA, and then
exactly you can still do that.
Well, you can't if the cinema's closed.
The bloke at the theatre says, "Yeah, we'll put it on. Take your money."
Well, I mean, I think that cinema might be closed for much of the rest of the year, but I wouldn't be surprised if, Netflix or whoever are like, right, well, you don't actually have to open it to the public, just play our film for 2 weeks to an empty room, and that counts.
Exactly, yeah. That's it, yeah. Or just say, like, if we're going to have social distancing in the thing, it's like you have to have 2 seats between everybody. It doesn't matter. We're not bothered about selling tickets for this at the moment. We're just getting it in a theatrical release.
Except, like I say, the Oscars have changed the rules for this year in a really kind of wishy-washy way, I should add, whereby anything that was going to be released theatrically but now gets released digitally is eligible. They have to make a reasonable case that they were going to be screening it in cinemas.
It's fair enough, isn't it?
And I think it's just going to be on a case-by-case basis. But, yeah, I think this could be James Bond's year through sort of weird circumstances.
Well, I think it would take more than a global apocalypse to get James Bond on the Oscar podium. So.
Well, the real thing is, if it wins, does that count? Or do they only get like a digital...
There's a big asterisk.
They only get a digital Oscar instead of a real one.
I mean, this is somewhat topical for the film. Well, it's not really, but it's tangentially of note to talk about in the context of Tomorrow Never Dies, because Tomorrow Never Dies opened on the same day as Titanic in 1997 in many territories, which was, of course, went on to win.
I thought you were going to say it's because the media are lying to us.
Oh,
The controllers.
Oh, well, are they lying to us though, Alan? That is an opinion of yours.
There is no virus.
All right, well, shall we get into talking about the film we're here to talk about today, Tomorrow Never Dies?
Yeah, we've come straight off of GoldenEye, of course. So, as far as I know, GoldenEye is considered one of the better Bonds, so it was well received. It'd been obviously a big hiatus. This was their big comeback. Did it go down as they wanted it to?
Well, it made more money. All the Pierce Brosnan films are on an upward slant, so each one made more money than the previous, and that's, not bad. As I say, this opened against Titanic, which was the highest grossing film of all time for a while, so the fact that it still made a good chunk of money, good on it. Critically, it was not as well received, and the production was quite troubled. It's your classic sort of like big budget, they're going into it with no script, people are being cast and then dropping out, cast members are turning up thinking that their character is like what it was in draft 12 and now it's draft 14 and it's completely changed, and yeah. So a very, very troubled production, this one.
Okay. That might go part way towards explaining it. Without getting into the film, can we just talk about the acting for a bit?
Oh, okay.
Because I made a note. My first note is this actor at the start, this British guy, is fucking awful.
Pierce Brosnan.
And then I followed up... No. Then I followed up the worst performance I've ever seen in a mainstream film. And it took me a while to figure out who this is that I was talking about. But I think it was Colin Salmon.
Oh, yes, it was, because I made the same note. Star of Resident Evil 4.
Yep. Alien versus Predator as well. Him and Paul W.S. Anderson are very chummy.
I couldn't believe what I was watching. But then the thing is... As the film went on, everyone's pretty terrible in this film, and they're all delivering it in that kind of PlayStation game cutscene kind of style. So, I don't know if it's Colin Salmon's fault. I mean, he's by far the worst one here, but like it feels like a film directed by someone who doesn't speak English. The dialogue is so stilted. The way Alan talks about how badly acted some of the earlier films are because they had to dub in all the Bond girls. Like, every single actor in this film felt like that, with the exception of Pierce Brosnan, who comes away so well, one almost wonders if he had a contractual clause written into the film that was like, everyone else has to be...
The director's not allowed to talk.
Yeah, the director has to make sure the other people are edited to look like they're giving a worse performance than Pierce Brosnan, so he looks better by comparison.
I don't think... I mean, okay, yeah, Terry Hatch and Jonathan Pryce were both pretty poor. But I think, in defence of Colin Salmon and Jonathan Pryce particularly, the dialogue is very poor for those guys. It's like Colin Salmon, that first scene, it's just like, right, mate, you're doing exposition here. Make this sound good.
I know, but he still delivers it like this. Really now.
Fun for the whole
Bond,
family.
Will you listen to me, please, James?
That looks like an American encoder. They use it to control their navigation satellites, the GPS system.
Did you know I did Shakespeare on the stage?
Did he?
I'm one of the most respected Shakespearean actors of the London stage scene.
Colin Salmon?
I don't think so.
That's what it says on his IMDb bio, if you look at it.
No way. Seriously.
It is written by C. Salmon 69.
Let's see. One of Britain's most renowned actors. Okay, I've added in the stage element myself.
Renowned. What is he renowned for, though?
He's
That's not necessarily a
renowned
good
for
thing.
having a bold voice and posture.
Are you sure you're not looking at someone else?
That is what it
He
says.
does have good posture.
Yeah, he has excellent. I mean, I like that's what his official bio on IMDb says. I mean, I say official, mini bio written by anonymous. So
Look, he's probably a lovely man.
He probably is. He comes across, and he's only here because Michael Kitchen, who was in GoldenEye, was supposed to come back, but he was filming Foyle's War, so they had to bring in Colin Salmon as a new character.
oh dear.
Should we talk about this pre-credit sequence if
Okay.
we want to jump into the film? Because for what you're saying, Sol, about PlayStation 1 cutscene sort of stuff, I can tell how you would get that vibe from this pre-title sequence, which is a lot of exposition, people in a room, and Bond is at a terrorist arms bazaar, and he's having to fly the nuclear missiles out before the whole place blows up. And it does play sort of... Bond doesn't often grab a machine gun and go like mowing people down in droves, but here he's doing that, and maybe it does feel a bit more American action hero than sort of in keeping with what the series has done for the most part so far.
He's still wearing a tuxedo though, isn't he, and a bow tie when he's doing it. It's not
Not in the opening, but he does later on.
I think he is.
No, he isn't.
I think he is actually, because he goes in the plane and he gets the chin strap of the helmet caught on his bow tie, and he fiddles around with that for about 5 minutes.
Are you joking?
Because the clock's ticking down, and they're like, "Bond, stop messing about with your bow tie. We've got to get on with it." I'm like, sorry, Em. I may have dozed off while I was watching this film.
What do you mean dozed off? We're only 5 minutes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm so glad I took exhaustive notes this time round. Because
I
I watched
this film 3 hours ago. I've forgotten it already.
I was going to say I watched this film 2 days ago, and I've it's gone from my memory. Like, I wouldn't even remember that Terry Hatcher was in it had I not written down Terry Hatcher's a Bond girl.
I must say, I definitely felt, not to give too much away, but this was just very forgettable and kind of nothingy. Not bad, but just a bit like, Is that what they're aiming for?
They're aiming for mediocre and forgettable.
I mean, look, at the start of this film, I was enjoying it. Like, I was on board. I thought, right, it's 90s as fuck, but that's fun. Campy, I can get on board with it. But, I think this is just the thing with Bond movies, is, like, I'll give them like an hour of good faith, and then they spend it. And, that's what happened here.
Okay. I see where you're coming from, and particularly in this opening sequence, there's a lot of good action stuff. I don't know if you took out James Bond and just put in any old action hero,
Sean Bean.
you could just do the same thing with anyone, basically.
So you're saying it's not very Bond? Somehow.
At the start, I don't think it is, but I think that the music, they've got a really good composer here in David Arnold now, taking over from the previous guy, and you can tell that the music is working. Yes, it is.
His first one. Wow. Okay.
Yes, he came off of Independence Day into this. But you can they play the Bond theme so much throughout the whole thing. It's really working overtime to make you think it is more Bondy than it is. I do love the music here, and I think that is a good reason of why I go with this film so well. I think it really does that classic Bond sound, but modernizes it. I think the action sequences are really exciting, and I do quite love the opening.
Yeah, I like the opening. I was on board with it. It was silly nonsense, but I wasn't not enjoying it at this point.
I have a feeling that I already know the answer to this, but the theme song here is "Tomorrow Never Dies" by Sheryl Crow. What did you think of the song?
Tomorrow never dies. Yeah, actually, how does it go, Calvin? Because I have actually forgotten. Tomorrow never dies.
Tomorrow never dies.
I see it in your eyes. Tomorrow never dies.
That's an actual lyric.
I know.
You remembered more of this than you thought, Alan.
Until
the song. The song has a real kind of Bond theme feel to it, actually.
Yeah,
kind of more old school one. I quite liked that element. I don't like her voice. I didn't like what she was doing with it, but I kind of like the concept of it.
I thought it was a really generic, not particularly interesting song on its own terms, but within the specific context of a James Bond opening credit sequence, it fit perfectly. It was, I'd never choose to listen to it on its own, but it was a really cool. Yeah, it just fit. The soundtrack fit, and those opening titles are really cool.
Yeah, they're kind of paying homage to the naked silhouette ladies.
Yeah, I think this might
classic, but they're digital because it's the 90s.
This might be my favourite James Bond opening titles to date. Actually, we've finally hit the full-on After Effects collage era, I suppose. We're done.
Yeah.
We're done with awkwardly filming Roger Moore with a kind of red light filter on his face. Now we've actually, we can just do kind of PlayStation special effect X-rays on women. But yeah, I mean, it's 90s as fuck again, but it's everything I want in a James Bond title sequence made in the 90s. It was good.
Girls and guns.
Yeah, but even then,
Girls and guns.
It wasn't just completely gratuitous naked women. It was kind of like, well, no, she's getting X-rayed. There's a bit more about it than just, oh, look, titillation. It was, there's the bit where there's that naked woman and we zoom in close on her neck, and then the Chaos Emeralds fly off like she's going to turn into supersonic, spinning around her neck. That felt a bit weird because there's no diamonds in this film, are there?
Well, actually, it's funny you should bring this up. Actually, I was wondering about whether or not to bring this up, and I thought it was a bit.
They made this based on the 10th draft, and then they changed.
Well, yeah, there was a line in one version of the script where Elliot Carver made some reference to his satellites around the globe being like diamonds around his wife's neck or something like that.
Right.
So that's where that came from, and then obviously by the time they'd done it, that line wasn't in there anymore.
Well, that's a shame. It's a nice little thing, and it'd be better if it had some logical reason to be there.
And funnily enough, that song was not the song that David Arnold co-wrote a song called Surrender, which plays
Is that the one over the end credits
titles.
Oh, I see, that
Yes.
was actually like a really decent Bond theme. It was like, I remember that kicked off, and I was like, oh, this sounds way more like a proper Bond theme. I wonder why they didn't go with it.
I have the power make you surrender, not only your body but your soul. Tomorrow never dies. Surrender. Tomorrow will arrive on time. I'll tease and tantalize with every line till you are mine. Tomorrow never dies.
Well, that one has motifs that like go through the score. Like the Sheryl Crow song is just sort of like its own thing. There is no kind of consistent musicality with the rest of the score. But Sheryl Crow is a straight, attractive woman, and that is more marketable than poor lesbian K.D. Lang, who got the short end of the stick as the execs thought, oh well, we can put Sheryl Crow's face on the CD and sell more. So.
Why didn't they just do what Disney do, which is have K.D. Lang sing the version in the film, and then Sheryl Crow can do the one over the end credits that gets played on the radio?
Right, well, okay, I'll talk about the next chunk of the film, which basically introduces us to the villains. Jonathan Pryce.
I noticed we got a hell of a long time without Bond.
I noticed that,
really long time setting up the villains.
Yeah.
I feel like... Okay, so yeah, I just kind of interrupt you there. We have Jonathan Pryce as your main villain. Elliot Carver, who is a media mogul. And then there aren't really. He has a henchman who's just like a guy with bleached blonde hair who doesn't have any. He hasn't got any kind of malformed body parts or anything, so he's not very charismatic.
Well, Bond has always done these sort of German, really built, bleach blonde hair types. You Only Live Twice had one. For Your Eyes Only had one. This has one.
From Russia with Love. What was?
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, the main one. Yeah, Red Grant. Yeah, Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw. That's it.
Yeah. It all kind of goes back to him, I think.
Well, it's the Russians, isn't it?
Yeah.
Scary Russians.
Well, I mean, what did you think of while we're here? Because we're at the talking about the bit in the film where we see the villain's plan put into action. A British ship is sunk, and all the people on board are killed, and it's made to look like the Chinese sunk the ship. It's that whole baiting each side into, again, which is a bit of a classic Bond trope. We've seen that before. You Only Live Twice, when the space shuttles were being stolen to try and flare up tensions between nations. But here, yeah, we do get Jonathan Pryce as Elliot Carver. I know you've commented on the acting already. I'm a big fan of him, and I think he's camp and over the top and hilarious in this part. I'm guessing you two don't feel the same.
I mean, he was one of the best people in it, but even honestly, there's something up with the acting across the board in this film. And it's like everything is just a bit stilted and a bit overly enunciated. I don't know, it's like the director was a real stickler for you must hit all of the words exactly as they are written. Like everyone's just a bit, I don't know, like there's a rod up their ass.
Yeah, I did my thoughts on Jonathan Pryce's performance in general. Well, as Elliot Carver, so this isn't his fault. The dialogue, everything he says is either exposition or is explicitly going, "Hey, I'm a twat. I'm a massive twat. Look at me, I'm a twat."
Good morning, my golden retrievers. What kind of havoc shall the Carver Media Group create in the world today? Mr. Jones, are we ready to release our new software?
Yes, sir. As requested, it's full of bugs, which means people will be forced to upgrade for years.
Outstanding. Mr. Wallace, call the president. Tell him if he doesn't sign the bill lowering the cable rates, we'll release the video of him with a cheerleader in the Chicago motel room.
Inspired, sir.
And after he signs the bill, release the tape anyway.
Consider him slimed.
Everything is so on the nose. It's just like there's no character there at all. He's just a kind of cartoon villain.
I don't know.
There's more. That's what you like.
There's more character here than you get normally in a James Bond villain.
I think he's more lively.
Yeah, like you can tell that he's having a lot of fun chewing the scenery, and I think that goes a long way just towards making the film have a bit of energy. It's kind of lively.
Do you know what it's missing? Which it's only just occurred to me now.
A robot hand.
A robot dog. It's like, no, we never get a bit where Bond and the bad guy are kind of hanging out. I know they sort of meet at the party, but in the way that they're feeling each other out, and he's really charismatic villain, and he's like brings him a drink and stuff, and they both know, and like that's a classic Bond thing. We don't get that, and I think that what we get from those scenes are like the charismatic villain. And we never see that side of Carver. He's just a tosser all the way through.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
And it just makes it less fun, I guess.
Yeah.
And also, so his plot is obviously to bait both sides to start a third world war.
Yes.
Maybe this is just Bond's British bias, but he seems to be starting the World War III between China and Britain.
Well,
as opposed to China and America, which would be as if China's just going to, British boats are off our coast.
Earlier version.
What do they want? Are they delivering something?
They've come for all the tea.
You will note, of course, that this film was released in 1997, which was significant as the year that the British handed over Hong Kong. And a previous version of the story was all to do about that. The whole plot was surrounding that handover. And then that all kind of got changed, but I guess they'd already got permits to film in places and had sets built, so they just needed to roll with it. And again, Jonathan Pryce was a super last-minute replacement for, Anthony Hopkins was sort of the hot favourite for the part. And he didn't want to do it because, you don't have a script for me to read. What the hell? Of course I'm not going to sign on to this.
That's fair.
I have to say the cast in this film is something else by, like, the standards I'm used to. It's the first time I've, sat down during a Bond film, and I've known the names coming up in the opening credits.
Yeah, like Terry Hatcher, Michelle
Yeah,
Yeoh.
and I think a lot of that is these people went on to be significant after this film in a way that, I don't know, James Bond actors haven't in the past? Or
Well, I
is that
think
not
Might
right?
just be more of a generational thing. I think always the supporting actors do tend to be like TV actors, that kind of.
Well,
level.
I mean, obviously Terry Hatcher has, gone on to do stuff, but she's largely TV. But I guess that is generational, I suppose.
She'd already been on Lois and Clark at this point,
Yeah.
so she was already very much a name. And Jonathan Pryce had done plenty of stuff.
Yeah, but
he's had a fairly consistent career.
But we also have, Gerard Butler's in this film, Hugh Bonneville's in this film, Julian Fellows is in this film. There's
Vincent Schiavelli, isn't it?
Yeah, is that the guy out of Ghost?
Yeah.
What's the name of the guy who was in that sitcom with Judi Dench? He's in it too.
Jeffrey Palmer.
Palmer, that's it. Yeah.
But there's a lot of recognisable faces, and I haven't really had that in a James Bond film before.
Oh, those British ships are full of people. Just like I'm watching The Crown recently, and pretty much every actor on that ship is like just sort of what's his name? Is it Jason Watkins? He's in there.
Oh, and yeah.
There's like a bald older guy who I've seen in like plenty of stuff. Anyway.
So I mean, that stuff with the submarine up at the start and the ships and everything, and then they drop that drill thing on a submarine here at the opening, and suddenly it's like, oh man, shit's hitting the fan, and there's water going everywhere, and it's chaos. So I actually really enjoyed all the stuff on the submarines in this film.
So you enjoyed all the wet semen? Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah. Salty semen. Because the water came in and got them all salty, swilling them round. I mean, I love watching a scene where semen is just swilled or
is semen are. So Carver's plan, such as it is, includes using a stealth boat and then launching a sea drill to sink this ship. Now, I don't know what a sea drill is. I don't know if that's a potentially real thing, but I can't figure out how it works.
Well, I can't.
Context.
I can't figure out in what world that would be more efficient than a rocket or like an explosive torpedo.
Because because they have the surprise, don't they? They were close enough and they couldn't see them, so it didn't matter if just fire a rocket. But also, like it trundles along to the thing, so maybe it's got a little motor on it or something to push it forward. But how does it generate enough force to drive through what I assume is quite a thick steel hull?
Well, I'll tell you, Alan, because it had about 5 different circular saw things going in the same direction. So it obviously kind of latches onto it and then chews it through the center. Which I thought was quite a cool design, because initially it was I thought it was just going to be like a pizza knife on a torpedo, and that obviously wouldn't make any sense. But because they were
what's wrong with a good old laser cutter? Eh? What's wrong with that?
Because there were 3 pizza knives all pushing into the same point. It's okay, if that gets onto you like a limpet, then it's gonna keep going. I was alright with that. I thought it was quite a nice little design thing, actually. I mean, completely.
I'll tell you why they don't
hideously
blow it up.
impractical, but.
I'll tell you why they don't blow it up, because they go on to get those missiles, so they don't want to
they
potentially.
don't want to destroy them.
Yeah.
Calvin,
That's
do
fair.
they ever? Because they seem to like this sort of thing in James Bond. So in any of the future films, do we ever get just a big giant pair of scissors on a rocket shot at an airplane or something that just chops the airplane in half, or a boxing glove on a drone?
Have you seen? You've not seen The World Is Not Enough yet, have you?
No, is that the next one?
Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to spoil anything. Yeah.
But this speaks, Calvin, to something I noticed throughout, and it made me think this is just so kind of its time, very 90s, in that you've got these big action things. I was thinking later on with the motorbike chasers and all that sort of stuff. They were coming down on the banner, all that kind of thing. these kind of very physical effects. You know, there's not much CGI and stuff there. It's still very physical. It feels real, but in the same time, it feels quite crap because like they can't make it look that good. And also, there's really no sense of reality or physics to anything. And I think that changes in a post-Bourne world, that like we see, and it's still obviously a Hollywood reality, but we see the consequences of the physical actions. So like in this film, for example, they drive the motorbike off a building into another building, it collapses into the next thing. Not only are they not hurt at all, they also drive away. The motorbike's not damaged in any way either. And it's just sort of like cartoonish action. And I think we've lost that. Like, you know, you wouldn't do that today. I don't think you can get away with that.
That's true, yeah. Or it would be in an action comedy, probably.
Well, I have actually, I've made the note here, is this a comedy, ? And I'm not entirely sure what that was referring to, but I'm guessing it was the drill punching through the submarine.
Well, some of the dialogue is quite sort of, they do a lot of, pump her for information, 007, and it's up to you to decide how much.
That sort of cheeky little thing is
You always were
Bond,
a cunning
though.
linguist, James.
Oh, I mean, what the fuck was that?
Oh, I like that one.
Oh, dear.
The more overt thing is like Vincent Schiavelli's assassin is like a comic relief assassin.
Oh,
well,
okay, yes.
just on the topic of terrible one-liners, there's a bit where James Bond breaks a newspaper press, and he says the line, "They'll print anything these days." What is that? I don't get it. I don't get it. Is that a joke?
I always get caught out with that one because it's like he chucks a guy into the printing press and the newspaper's coming up and it's got blood all over it. And I always think he's going to say, I guess we know what's black, white and red all over. And then he doesn't say it.
That was... I kept a running total of how many lines Pierce Brosnan had that didn't contain a pun. And it's 0. He doesn't say anything that doesn't contain a pun. Every fucking sentence, some shitty wordplay.
I mean, I don't actually.
Awful script.
I don't actually know if that's a joke or not.
Filthy habit. Backseat driver. I'm just up here at Oxford, brushing up on a little Danish. Looking for a news story? They'll print anything these days.
I would have thought watching your TV shows was torture enough.
Next time I'll take the elevator. Just off the cuff, I thought we might link up. Let's stay undercover.
But yeah, he does a lot of just so many crap puns.
There is a lot in this one. There are an awful lot of puns, and there's an awful lot of Bond theme. It does feel like GoldenEye was a success, and then MGM executives suddenly started paying attention and were like, "Oh, okay, right. Focus groups like this do this. Oh, we need. You'll notice as well with the next couple of Brosnan ones as well. There are sort of executive sanctioned Bond girls drafted in, and Terry Hatcher is one of those where it was like, oh, we need someone who is going to appeal to Americans in this, so get her in.
And they chose Terry Hatcher.
She was big at the time. Lois and Clark was huge.
She's still only at Terry Hatcher, isn't she?
Do you mind if we skip along to where Bond gets his car?
One thing I want to mention.
Okay.
And it's with the Moneypenny scene. We just see her briefly talking on the phone. What's going on with her nails? Did you notice that?
Ooh.
She has these very long fake acrylic nails on.
Oh, you're right.
It really jumped out at me. Like, why? It didn't sit right.
Yeah.
Is that what you want with Moneypenny?
I mean, it's never bothered me in 23 years of watching this film, but now that you've mentioned it, oh yeah, she's got a bit like Pat Butcher earrings as well. Actually, I'm just looking at it now.
Right, so yeah, moving forward,
Q?
We have a Q scene.
Yes.
You know what I really liked here? James Bond turns around and says something like, "Oh, das Auto is kaputt. Sehr gut, ja?" And they're like, "Oh yes, Mr. Bond." And I was like, "Ooh."
Ja, mein Büro hat ein Auto reserviert.
I really like Pierce Brosnan speaking German. That's really nice.
Well,
Let's have more of that.
I noticed that, like, usually they kind of play it off like Bond just can, like, slip into any language and he's totally comfortable with it. But it felt deliberately like he was struggling with, like, some basic schoolboy German.
I really liked it, though.
That was a character choice.
It didn't feel like, James Bond is, like, gonna be able to go undercover as a German. It just felt like, it's a nice real moment. He knows German, but not well enough to, not fluently, but he can ask for his car.
Yeah.
Just while we're on the subject, later on when he gets to Wei-Lin's sort of secret base, at one point he goes up to a keyboard and it's got Mandarin symbols.
Oh, I made a note of that.
Ah, yeah. Yep. Did you remember?
Isn't he an expert in Oriental languages?
Yes, he has a first in it, I believe. Sean Connery in, yes. Habaya Gajaimash.
Ding dong. Ding dong.
Oh, hello. Who's that?
Oh, hello, lads.
Ich German Bond.
Ich bin ein Deutscher Bond.
Bond Deutscher. Alles klar.
Ich komme aus Patreon. Oh.
Oh, what's that, German Bond? You've got some Patreon news for us.
Oh, you have got some new subscribers that I want to tell
you can
about.
speak English. That's helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. German Bond. So our Patreon, patreon.com/dimreturns, is $1 a month. And for that, you get all sorts of extra content. Mostly what we call Diminisodes, which are sort of shorter episodes in which we review more recent releases generally. That's right, isn't it, German Bond?
$1 ein Mund. Oh, eins klein, eine kleine Gespunde.
You don't have any money, is that?
Oh, ich habe eine. Ich komme aus Berlin.
All right, I thought you spoke English.
What is it, German Bond? Are you going to tell us some new subscribers that? Yeah. It's like Lassie. We've got to get out of him like that. Oh yeah. Oh, you have Paul Armstrong. Oh, Paul Armstrong. Yeah, very good.
What's Armstrong in German?
Oh, handy.
Uberhandy.
Paul Uberhandy. Okay.
Very good.
Und Jared Bandy. Oh, Jared Bandy. Well, thanks, Jared and Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Und Neil Johnstone.
Neil Johnston.
Thank you, Neil.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, all three.
Hi, Neil.
Und I don't recall if you said him last time with Japanese Bond, but there's also Mark Rogers. He's up.
Oh, I don't recall that.
Mark Rogers. He's upped $1 $1 to $3. Oh well,
$3.
Thank you, Mark. That's
of
really.
Of course, you can pay more than you have to if you just want to help the show. We're always happy with that.
That's really really nice of you. Thanks, Mark. Especially with the current situation, every little helps and all that.
Patreon supporters do get access to other things. So we've just done a poll in which we had Patreon supporters suggest films for us, and we've picked one. We won't give that away just yet, but also we recently did a live episode in which the Patreon supporters were right there with us and could ask us questions and things like that.
That was very fun.
So there is it's worth it if you want to support the show. Definitely worth $1 a month. Anyway, that's for sure.
Oh well, auf Wiedersehen. All right, this is the weakest German Bond character it's the weakest character we've ever had out of the Bond family on the podcast, and you know why?
Because it's not Werner Herzog.
Exactly, it's because I went for a kind of high-pitched German instead of one I am comfortable improvising in. Should we? If we redo the entire sequence, it will be much easier. We have got first of these unnecessary forays into financial propagation. We have Paul Armstrong. See, it's just easier. It's I don't know, easier just to throw big words and mein Handy.
You did go a little bit Uta from The Simpsons with that one.
What is a handy? Because that is a German word that I know.
A mobile phone.
Is it a mobile phone? All right. I knew it was one of my. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
Sehr gut.
Q scene.
Oh, he's never looked this old before, which makes sense because these were shot chronologically. But
Well, that really got Calvin, didn't it?
It's been a while since we had a 30-second laugh that gets edited down and it still feels long.
Oh dear, Calvin's gone. Okay, Calvin, come back to us.
Yeah.
All right. So, Calvin, there's not really in the Q scene. There's not really much of any gadgets apart from the remote control car. That's basically it, isn't it? That's all he gets.
Yeah.
Which is a bit lackluster for a Bond. But also, now, obviously, the Bond car is a big thing in Bond films. It's a thing, and I know. I think I speak for Sol as well. I just don't get it. I'm not a car person. I see a car, it's a car. However, I will say, when I saw this car, I did think, what an ugly car. And I just thought, that looks really crap. And it kind of looks quite, I guess it looks 90s. And to now, watching it 20 odd years later, it looks really old and dated. But I don't think that when you see an Aston Martin, you might think, oh, that looks kind of 60s. But that's quite cool. I guess there's cars they had in the 70s that turned into a submarine and stuff were really crap in the 70s.
Calvin, is this the BMW 750IL? I've just looked up Tomorrow Never Dies car because I don't remember what it looks like. Yeah, I must say, looking at it now, I mean, my mum used to drive a Renault 5 in the 90s, and it looks similar to that.
Right, so the reason why we have this very un-Bondy car in this is, do you recall back to GoldenEye where they set up this car, Stinger missiles, all this kind of stuff? It was convertible, sporty, and it never actually got any good use in the film?
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, they had the BMW Z3 in GoldenEye, and because of production constraints, they couldn't have a big showcase scene for it or anything. So BMW were like, right, we're gonna give you the car, and it's gonna be a nice family car that people watching this film can actually buy, and you're gonna make it look good. So that's why we have this car.
But that's not really the point of a Bond car, is it? One that a middle manager is going to buy.
The point is to sell cars. I guess BMW figured they'd sell more of these than yeah. Did you notice, by the way? You know when he takes Bond outside and it's in a big crate and the crate falls down. Did you notice that in the background there's another crate with a Jaguar in it, as in the big cat?
Oh, an actual cat, not a car.
Yeah. Yeah, because
is that like a diss? It's like
that was a deleted
Jaguar.
Scene where Q actually revealed the big cat and Bond said, a Jaguar. Anyway, they cut that out.
in another box behind that one was just like a big expanse of water, and that's because there was a deleted scene where Bond went, "Oh, I'm driving a fjord."
Oh my god. Oh dear. I'm sure you could have done better than that.
I don't know any other cars. What other car makes are there? There's Q has a matchstick box with a beetle in it, and Bond's raises an eyebrow.
Or okay, Q tries to open a thing, but he presses the wrong button and a little dart flies out instead, and he's like, "Oh," and Bond's like, "That's not very smart of you, Q."
Right, hang on. I need to Google. So then there's a box behind that one, and you know who's in it?
Who?
Francisco Scaramanga. Obviously portrayed by Sir Christopher Lee, but he's keeled over in the kind of L shape, and then James Bond says, "Oh, I thought I was going to drive a Bentley."
Oh my god. Right.
I think the lockdown's getting to us, if I'm honest.
So, my point of talking about this was that even though I don't think that the car looks like your traditional Bond vehicle, I still think it does get one of the best Bond vehicle action sequences in the car park in Germany later on.
How do we feel about a remote control car?
I mean, I agree with you.
It's just on the line, doesn't it?
I agree with you, Alan, that this scene was sorely lacking in gadgets. And I guess that's because Q's gone out performing his own deliveries, which I'm not entirely sure a man of his age would do. I think he'd stay in his office job and make Bond come to him, or there'd be someone else who'd actually go and pretend to be a valet. Because that's like, that's an entire, better part of a week he's probably spent flying over there, wherever it is, waiting around for James Bond, giving him a car.
Yeah, but it's a jolly, isn't it? He's going out there, he's going to do some sightseeing.
Yeah, kiss some women in a hot air balloon.
Yeah, you know what he's like.
Yeah, but remote control car, I mean, that's the gadget, isn't it? So if that's all you've got, it was like, well, that's not really that interesting. I mean, are you saying it's too sci-fi? It's too silly?
Well, not exactly, because
for me, it's not enough. It's just like boring.
A remote control car is a thing.
Exactly.
Sizing it up is certainly plausible. I'm not gonna, but I don't like that it's like on a phone and there's no. It's just.
It's not. It's on a fucking Game Boy Advance. It's on a little Nintendo Game Boy Advance.
It's a flip phone. There's like the buttons. There's just like 4 buttons, and press one of them twice, and it makes pins fall out of the back. Press them in another order, and it makes the ejector seat or whatever. And Bond knows all this. He's obviously read the manual and memorized all that. Press
it 3 times, and it blows up, but not if you then press it 5 times to disarm the fuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also basically a self-driving car. They don't really mention that, but it, based on how it drives over towards them and stuff, it obviously has that capability. It doesn't look like they're steering it, it just looks like they press a button and it drives over to them.
I don't know. I think he's supposed to be steering it. They just don't even make half an effort to make it look like.
Yeah, it's just got like a trackpad, and there's no consistency with it. He's like tapping bits here and there, and it's
It's like when you watch someone in a 90s sitcom who's supposed to be playing a video game, but they've obviously never touched a PlayStation in their life, so they're just kind of like holding the controller sideways, mashing it with both hands. Like, come on.
It's like when you're watching Jonathan Pryce typing, and he's clearly never used the keyboard. He's like, because he doesn't even look at it.
Oh dear.
So we're about this stuff where there's a load of stuff going on in Germany. Met Terry Hatcher. Shall we also meet Michelle Yeoh, who we haven't really talked about yet, as main Bond girl Wei Lin?
I mean, I know I don't love her as much as you do, but
how do you know I love her?
Because you always go on about her.
Do I?
You've definitely gone on about her. Like, I think she was. Oh God, what else is she in? She's in something we watched, and then you were like,
"Oh, Sunshine."
Yes, yeah, it will be. Yeah.
I guess she's exactly at the right sort of level for Bond, I suppose. Not a big star, but totally capable.
Yeah.
She brings enough character to it. I don't think the writing's up to much in this film in general, so there's not much there. But she does it well, holds her own in the action stuff. And, it becomes a nice little buddy thing between them. Like I said, it would be so easy to just make so much more of that, give them some proper dialogue, nice character stuff, and you could actually do something with that, make a good film about it. But the writer obviously just thought it wouldn't bother.
Writers.
Or they wrote it. Yeah. Or they wrote it and then said, oh, sorry, the photocopy is broken, we can't do that. But I think she does as well as she can under the circumstances. The one bit I liked about their whole bit, when they get handcuffed together and they end up on the motorbike, which is the big action set piece, isn't it, of the whole thing. I really liked that. I thought it worked. Having them handcuffed together gave it a nice kind of flavour, very individual feel for this action sequence instead of just, we're going around a favela on a bike or whatever. It allowed them to spark off each other, and it was obviously a metaphor for the fact that they're having to reluctantly cooperate, but ultimately they work well together. I thought that works really nicely. It sums it up and it gives the action sequence some character. Great. Beautiful bit of bonding there.
Well, I made notes up until this point, and then I made a note, losing interest now 40 minutes in. So
Oh dear.
That, I mean, it's just a free-for-all from me now. So
it definitely did not hold my focus either, particularly.
Okay,
I've got two more specific notes to get to for the rest of the film, but yeah.
Well, I do want to talk about the whole Terry Hatch thing, because I think that one of the interesting things that that Brosnan's tenure as Bond tries to do is that they try to give him relatively different scenarios with women to play off, and this, we've never seen Bond sort of be so attached to a former flame before. She's not in it very much, and she's offed quite quickly, so I don't know if we really get the full potential of that. But
did they do that? Did they kill her off quickly after they realised it was Terry Hatcher? And they were like, it's just...
Well, yeah,
let's keep this down to a minimum.
There have been rumours that this was either supposed to be, that this role was originally supposed to be played by Natalia from GoldenEye, that the actress was supposed to come back, and it was sort of going to be like, oh, what actually happens to Bond girls after they, he dumps them. And
I have no idea who that is in GoldenEye. I can't remember, but
the main Bond girl.
I have no idea
that would
what
be...
happens in GoldenEye.
She's the one who actually had a bit of agency about her and a bit of personality for a change.
Oh wait, it's the actor who never did anything else again, isn't it?
Oh yes, that's her. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I think that would have been really nice, actually, except maybe it should have been saved for the third Pierce Brosnan film, so you kind of have a gap, and then she comes back. Yeah. Have they ever done that? Has a Bond girl ever come back for another film apart from potentially Quantum of Solace, because it picks up immediately at the end of the previous one?
Well, I mean, actresses have come back. Maud Adams came back to play Octopussy after she'd been in The Man with the Golden Gun. But no, there were plans to have Wei Lin come back in Die Another Day, but those fell through for whatever reason. So yeah, they have had intentions every now and then, but it just never seems to work out.
Do you know who they do bring back? Joe Don Baker.
Oh, yes, he's
because
back.
Apparently he's so fucking popular. They have to shoehorn him. I assume that was written for a totally different character, and then they just went, oh, Joe's available. I met him at the barbecue on Friday. He said he needs some work. I'm assuming that happened.
Well, he's supposed to be like the new Felix Leiter now, isn't he? He's sort of like Bond's American contact. So whenever he has anything to do with
I hate everything about that character, because he's like, hey, Jimmy, come on over. I got something for you. And it's like such forced kind of character and bonhomie kind of bullshit. It feels so badly written and forced. I think that's the problem.
And he's wearing his sort of grubby dinosaur Hawaiian t-shirt. Yeah, and his fisherman hat. He just feels like a different character to even what was in GoldenEye, I think. Just while we're talking about bit parts, I do want to talk a bit about Dr. Kaufman, because when I was rewatching the film, I did kind of think, I bet Sol and Alan, if they're going to like anything about this film, it's this scene. Am I accurate?
I mean, it's just out of place. Doesn't feel like it fits. I kind of liked it as a standalone thing, I suppose. But...
I think Vincent Schiavelli's great.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, I only knew him as the kind of maniac in Ghost, which I watched very recently for the first time, and I he made a big impression on me out of that film to say he's only got like 2 scenes or something, and then he appears here all kind of done up like Gomez Adams, and it was sort of like, oh, it's a side of him.
It was a very Gomez look. Yeah.
A side of him I haven't seen. So yeah, I mean, I guess I enjoyed it, but it was very much like, I'm bored of this film now. So
oh god, we're only halfway through.
Let's just get on with it.
But none of it makes any sense. Why would you set that up? Waiting for him to come in. Why not just smash him in the face when he walks in and then shoot him in the back of the head? And why... Okay, right. Imagine this, right? You're a newsreader. And Rupert Murdoch is your boss, or your Rupert Murdoch equivalent. He calls you up. And he says, I need you in the studio. You're like, oh my Christ, this is the big boss. He's calling. And he says, I need you to read this news story. Don't worry, it's not going live. We're videotaping it. And you read the news story, and it's about his wife being found dead in a hotel room. And then, like, 48 hours later, his wife turns up dead in a hotel room. Would you not question that at any point?
I do wonder, like, because the whole point of this is, like, oh, he gets tomorrow's headlines, he creates the headlines through all of his stuff. Like, someone somewhere at, like, a printing press must, like, have some kind of suspicion. Like, it is quite remarkable that he can sink a British frigate and... give specifics about how many people have been killed. The
thing is, I thought that as well. I thought it was just giving it away, isn't it? Obviously, he knows something. It's like he's giving away too much. But then they basically go, like, they see the newspaper and go, how did he know this? And then they're like, well, he's in on it. And that's pretty much like the 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
So it's just like everything about this character, it's like, he's just shit at being a villain, isn't he? It's like everything he does goes wrong. He keeps trying to get his Aryan like wunderkind to kill people and just never does it. That Stamper is incompetent. How many times does he say he's killed Bond and hasn't?
Yeah, actually,
I'd be pissed off about that.
I did do a podcast recently on the James Bond and Friends podcast, and we did talk about the amount of times in Bond films where characters presume that Bond is dead, and I think this one had the most. Because, at the end, the ending action sequence, for about half an hour, they think they've killed him, and then they haven't, and then they think they've killed him, and then they haven't, and yeah. Stamper doesn't do a whole lot.
But just connected to the Mr. Kaufman, is it? Dr. Kaufman?
Yes.
We also see that Stamper is his protege and is learning torture techniques from him. And we see his little toolkit of cartoon torture devices. And it just feels like, who's writing this? Why is this happening? It's just so nonsense. I don't know what tone they were going for with this film.
I really struggled with that, though. I said I made the note, is this a comedy at the start? This film is the most tonally all over the place James Bond has felt in a while for me. And I think that is that they're just embracing having fun, but not enough for it to feel consistent, maybe? I don't know.
I think there is no character in this film. That's the problem. Like, they haven't written any characters. It's just dialogue. Villain, woman, Bond. It's like there's no character to any of them. And that's why it just feels nothingy. But the plot moves along fine, so it's like, okay, I understand what's happening. It's not that engaging. And you got the action set pieces, blah, blah, blah. So it works. But there's no depth to anything. And so the writer's obviously just gone, well, let's just put some gags in and try and sort of glaze over this. It's like that's the plaster over the cracks, isn't it? It's just, let's make it superficially entertaining. That'll work.
Works for me. I like the cartoony villain and the music and the action and stuff. I think it's good.
So it's something we didn't mention earlier, that Bond infiltrates Elliot Carver's launch party of his new global news network and manages to turn it off with one switch. Just switches it off. Just like, this is a global news network, and he literally flicks one switch and they're like, we're off air and all the lights have gone out. It's just pathetic, isn't it? It's just, that's the sort of, like, at least make it a big switch. Like a big thing that you have to really, like, pull at. Sorry, another note. Why is Ricky Jay playing a character called Gupta? Obviously, that's supposed to be an Indian person. They just thought, fuck it, Ricky Jay, that's close enough.
There was some deleted scenes with him. He had this whole like villain henchman thing with like playing cards.
Playing cards. That's what Ricky Jay does. That's all he does.
Exactly. That's like why they hired him, and then they cut it all out. Like there's bits where he's like playing cards, and it's like embedding in people, and now he has nothing to do.
But why would he have cards? He's like a computer guy, isn't he?
Yes.
And the MacGuffin of the whole film is this shitty little just a diode thing, isn't it? It's just a number
the decoder.
Yeah, it's like what? Who are the props department? Who's the designer who could have come up with anything at all? It's like a decoder, can look like anything you want. It's just total nonsense.
Funny you should bring up the
churn this out.
Funny you should bring up the designer, the production designer, who has been with the Bond films for so long, Peter Lamont. He did not do this film because James Cameron asked him to go and do Titanic, for which he won his Oscar. So, yeah.
So he does a parachute jump to get to the ship because he's trying to see what happened to it, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, in terms of like physical reality, he does a parachute jump. He opens the parachute and then cuts it away. Approximately 2 seconds later, wouldn't have slowed him down at all. He would have just slammed into the ocean and died. Like not even a slightest attempt to make that look real. And then what? He's got scuba diver gear attached to him as well. Is that how it works? Okay.
Yep.
They jump off a building and
this is my
face to save him.
My final note. They didn't build anything close to the amount of momentum you'd need to get through that window.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. I made that note.
I was furious.
Like it would be hard to smash through a window at that height because they're reinforcing everything anyway.
Yeah, and they could. I don't know. They could have at least just had them jump a third time. Because it's like
just
twice.
Make it look like they're jumping, with more force.
Didn't Bond have a gun on him?
I think he'd been taken off him at this point.
It would have been better if one of the people in the side just.
That's what I thought was going to happen because all these people
just go, "Oh, sorry, old chap, just passing through."
All these people are there looking all concerned because they're dangling down by a window. And I thought, one of those office workers is going to, pick up a chair and smash the window, or, open a window and reach out to them. But instead, it's this bullshit. I mean, it's like Die Hard, but bad. I think he does the same thing in Die Hard, doesn't he? But he actually builds up significant momentum with a big heavy metal object.
Yeah. Plus he sort of slams his bloodied foot against it and it's all streaky. Yeah. It looks a lot better.
Yeah, and that's it. When he comes through the other side of the glass window, he's all cut to fuck and it doesn't just walk away like, good thing that window was made out of fake glass. That was really handy.
What pun does he say after they come through the broken window? There must be a pun.
No, there
Clear
isn't.
As day.
Smashing.
They just dust each other off and then they run off down to find a motorbike to get on and drive off.
We've shattered expectations. That's so
much for the glass ceiling.
That's the formula for Pierce Brosnan ones is that they don't quite ever make sense. They're always sort of in the right ballpark, but they're like, if you think about them for 5 seconds, you're like, wait, what?
Another thing I thought that would have been fantastic if they'd only had the balls to do it. When he's handcuffed to her, and obviously they've got problems with all that, what if she'd been shot and killed, and then he has 20 minutes of dragging her corpse around, and having to work out slinging her over his shoulder while he's trying to drive a motorbike and stuff. That would have been comedy genius. You're a bit of a dead weight, darling.
But he wouldn't say that because it's Pierce Brosnan. He'd say something else. He'd go a rolling stone gathers no moss, and we'd be like, what?
But we like this whole motorbike chase, right? Alan, you were very positive about it earlier.
I think they do a good job of making it interesting. Whereas it is ultimately it is just here, next thing we're driving through here. Here's a smashy.
Yeah, I think my problem with third act Bond action scenes is that I just want the movie to be over at that point. They've already lost me. They're not going to win me back.
the end of Act 2, because the Act 3 is all on the stealth boat, pretty much. We have some action with Wei Lin in her own sort of little lab. Yeah, and then but the ending is mainly on the stealth boat, and this is the stuff that I think people point to when they say this doesn't feel remotely Bondy. Like, he's going around with machine guns, like mowing down henchmen. There's a lot of the set just doesn't look very Bond inspired. It's more of a Die Hard sort of feel to it. Still, I like it.
I can't really remember anything about the last bit.
Yeah, I mean,
he puts a grenade in a jam jar.
Yep.
What? Then what? Rolls it, puts it back in the fridge, and then a henchman walks in and with a bit of toast and picks up the jam jar. But then when they open the lid, but the lid won't open, and they have to run it under the tap to expand the glass, the metal, so they can open the lid. And then they open it with like a towel, a tea towel wrapped around it, and look at it, and then it blows up.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it might have been a deleted scene.
And then Pierce Brosnan, of course, looks at the charred corpse of the man and says, like,
"You got yourself into a bit of a jam there." How does the bad guy die? What happened?
Oh, he gets the drill. Bond activates the massive CVAC drill that Jonathan Pryce doesn't realise is...
Yeah, it's this massive thing. It's like a hot air balloon full of women coming up behind him and didn't hear it.
Yeah.
And then, what does he say after he murders him? What's the thing?
He doesn't say anything. Oh no, as he's about to be murdered, he says, "You're forgetting the first rule of mass media, Elliot. Give the people what they want." And then he sort of like throws him into the...
murders him.
Yes.
And then we have the secondary bit where there's still some sort of bomb rocket. There's a rocket going off. And he has a little fight with the henchman. So the henchman comes up with Michelle Yeoh and is like, don't save the world or I'll kill her. And Bond's just like, yeah, I'm gonna just carry on doing what I'm doing.
he really does, doesn't he? It's
like, mate, you have no stakes here. You have no chips in the game here. You need to just walk away. It's over.
Yeah.
Kills him.
I do really like Michelle Yeoh. She gets like a lot of her own action moments in this film, and I think she's really good. I think obviously she's a great action star in her own right. She's, carried films.
Like what?
Well, Hong Kong films and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, that's
I was hoping
one.
you wouldn't make me... I was hoping you wouldn't get hung up on this. I'm sure she's a
You said
big
films,
star.
plural, so give me a second one.
Right, okay. One sec.
He's just looking in his mind.
Action movies,
Yes,
Michelle Yeoh has carried, so she's the lead in. We've got one on the table, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Wing Chun.
It's
a film starring Michelle Yeoh and Donnie Yen.
Okay.
Oh, all right. Yeah. The film review website, Rotten Tomatoes, ranked her the greatest action heroine of all time in 2008. There you go.
I mean, Rotten Tomatoes put like Lady Bird as the greatest film of all time a few years ago, if I remember. So, I mean, I take everything they say with a pinch of salt.
All right, name as a female action hero better than whoever we're talking about.
Michelle Yeoh.
That's right.
Sigourney Weaver.
Calvin, your rebuttal, please.
I have a hard time disagreeing with that, actually. Except, actually,
Linda
no.
Hamilton.
Michelle Yeoh did most of her own stunts and fights. I don't believe that Sigourney Weaver did.
I'd even let Mila Jovovich have this, to be honest.
Actually, yeah, Mila Jovovich. Yep, there we go.
Fair point, yeah.
So the romantic sort of subplot, obviously Bond of this time will always finish the film with a girl, and here the romantic subplot is pretty much non-existent. There's no tension or real romantic chemistry between these two people, and he does only really have to kiss her because he gives her mouth-to-mouth underwater so that she can breathe.
Yeah.
There's never romantic chemistry between Bond and another human being.
Well,
No, there was once. Remember, I noted
Once,
it. 'cause
maybe,
it was
yeah,
so
once.
odd. And Timothy Dalton had chemistry with someone.
Right. Like, to be fair, maybe twice even it's happened, but he's not. It's not part of the formula. It's sexual tension.
I think. Well, okay.
And even that is
Okay, yes.
usually between the characters and blatantly not between the actors, and they don't do a very good job of selling it.
But I think the reason we haven't had that before, and why we will get it with Daniel Craig more often, is because they've started writing female characters and letting them have character instead of just being a kind of puppet there for him to save or whatever. So if you write the women characters better, then they can spark off each other a bit. And I think they're sort of hinting at it here.
Imagine if they really were just puppets in these old films. If this was about James Bond having to save Alf, bringing him a cat.
But yeah, they're sort of leaning towards it now. Like this, it would be so easy to take this, what you've got here, give it to a real writer, and put some, because there's chemistry, there's tension between them, as in like they're sparking and stuff. It would be so easy to make that sexual chemistry. And all the stuff where they're having to climb on each other on the bike and stuff, it never quite plays at that, but you could so easily do it. In fact, it made me think, like, what if this was a man? Like, if this, because it's just another agent that they come across. What if it was a guy and they got handcuffed together?
Sean
and then
Bean.
He had to, like,
what if it was Sean Bean?
Yeah, what if it was Sean Bean, like, and they were awkwardly, like, hugging each other on the bike? It wouldn't play, would it? It wouldn't play at the Bond core.
Or an unattractive woman.
Yeah.
Right, so yeah, the film sort of ends with them having awkward sex on a raft as the thing is blown up. Or they're making out, at least.
Yeah, just not out of nowhere, and it's pointless.
Yeah, but that is it. That is the end of the film. Oh, and in loving memory of...
Oh!
Yes, Albert R. Cubby Broccoli. Did you all catch the dedication?
No, what did it say?
It
They
literally
say, "Oh, I'm in heaven" or something.
In loving memory of Albert R. Cubby Broccoli. Like, there isn't even a, like, if you heard the end title song, you must have seen that dedication. It starts the credits.
I turned it off.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Conclusions.
I have a great time with this one. It's one of my favourite sort of just put on and enjoy Bond films. Watched it recently. I think it breezes by. It's just under 2 hours. It's great fun, great soundtrack. I'm a really big fan of this one. So, it's an 8.
Well, I think I kind of agree with a lot you've said there, apart from the kind of positive intonation you put on it. Yeah, it just breezes by. It's sort of nothingy. And I think it's very clear that no one had any kind of artistic drive about this. It's just, let's crap this out. Have we got a script? Not yet. We're crapping it out. Hang on a sec. Has we got a good director? Well, I can say action and cut. Is that good enough? Yeah. It's just nobody cares. And I think that really shows. And it's sad. I understand it's a business, but you want something behind it. Having said that, it functions. I gave it 6.
I take real issue with both of you saying it breezes by.
In the sense that you barely notice it.
Well, no, because for 2 hours, that's just got this to get through. I mean, look, it's probably in the better half of Bond movies so far. It's not
a high bar, though, is it?
Not very. Yeah, it's not a particularly offensive one. Like, it is relatively watchable by the standards of James Bond so far. But that is quite a low bar, and I mean, it's a significant step down from GoldenEye, which I also wasn't impressed by. It's messy, it's all over the place, it's not bringing enough new... Well, there's nothing new being brought to the table here, really, other than perhaps a bit of CGI in the opening title sequences. I don't know, it's just boring. Like, it was not the worst, but far from the best. I give it 5 out of 10.
Fair.
What's the next one?
The next one is The World Is Not Enough, which is one of my very favourites.
I was going to say, is that one regarded as an improvement?
in some circles, it is. I think it's more of a proper film. I'll say.
Well, let me ask you a question, Sol. Imagine you're a Bond writer, and you've realised that the phrase "Christmas comes once a year" has the potential for sort of cheeky innuendo.
Yeah.
What sort of organic way would you get that into a script that made sense and wasn't horribly forced?
I'd probably do a James Bond Christmas movie. I don't think we've seen Bond at Christmas yet. I think we'd open on Christmas Day. We'd open on Christmas Day and he's in bed with a woman, but she's got like a Santa hat on. And he wakes up and there's like a nibble's gone out of the mince pie and someone's had a sip of the brandy. And then he sees it and he slaps the woman because she let a glass of brandy out to the air and it's, ruined it's not been preserved overnight and it was expensive stuff. And anyway, then he bangs her and he just says, "Christmas comes once a year" or something. Because it's Pierce Brosnan, so it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to kind of vaguely have the right... It's like he's jamming the wrong jigsaw piece into... Like, it's the right jigsaw, but that piece doesn't go there. But he knows it's the right piece, so he's just ramming it in there, like, forcefully.
Well...
Is that not how they do it?
It's close, yeah.
I was going to say, we have seen Bond at Christmas before. It was Christmas in On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Was it?
Yes.
What did Bond get?
Blofeld's decorating a Christmas tree.
Did Q leave him a little present in his stocking?
No, they do just sort of gloss over the fact that it's Christmas.
Do you see Blofeld's cat like running up the tree, like trying to rip all the baubles off?
What
and
about?
It's like, get down!
What about
Mr. Fluffykins, get off the tree!
What about a Bond film where Bond has to fill in for Santa, and Q gives him a gadget that'll let him go around the world visiting 5 billion homes in one night, dispensing gadgets? Calvin's noise, like he's seriously considering that.
I was just thinking about, like, oh yeah, what if it was like a sack that you could fit more in than what it looks like you could?
I mean, there's definitely... See, Pierce Brosnan would love that. He would just say... he'd just say, "You can fit more in the sack than you'd think," and that's it. But it sounds rude, and that's fine. Oh dear, we're nearly there. We're nearly into the allegedly good Bond films. I'm getting really excited to actually not.
You know you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Don't get your hopes up.
Well, people, I don't know, Casino Royale's meant to be legitimately good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but you probably won't like it.
GoldenEye's meant to be legitimately good.
Well, GoldenEye was okay. Just Bond movies that are okay. That's a huge improvement.
That's passable entertainment.
That's all we want. Thank you for listening, everyone. And
Yes,
next week we're doing something a bit different. It was chosen by a listener.
Yes, we ran a competition on our Patreon to pitch us an episode. Alan and myself have deliberated and chosen the one we think is the most interesting topic for us to cover. I think it is the longest film we will have ever covered on the podcast. I don't think that's an exaggeration. I think significantly so.
We've done The Godfather.
I think this is a solid half hour, at least longer than that. So,
what film is it?
It's a secret, Carl.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Alan,
Alan,
tell him, but then in the edit, bleep it out.
Okay, we're doing.
Oh God. Oof.
So, next week.